Proverbs chapter 3, where we were last week. Proverbs chapter number 3. We quit in verse 10 last week, and I seem to preach a lot on 1 through 10, and there's a lot of other good verses in this Proverbs. Pray for me, I've got a bad headache I've had for, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours now. I took some ibuprofen and it hadn't helped or whatever. Might be a stress headache or something running a little bit right now. My mom, status on her is basically not changed much. She has declined, they say. The doctor used the term yesterday that she is on her last hair of life. So I don't know what that means to her. She's just been there for a while. So she just camped out on that last hair of life or whatever. Hey, Brother Andy, good to see y'all. Amen. Amen. How was Noah's Ark?
Great.
Was it great? I've heard it is. Huh? I think so too. My father-in-law, Brenda's dad and them, they were up there at it a few weeks ago and came back by and saw us, and they were raving about how good it was and everything. I've heard a lot of good things about it. Proverbs chapter 3, and let's pick up in verse number 11. We quit last week in verses 9 and 10 about honoring the Lord. I'll hit that just briefly again. Honor the Lord with thy substance and with the first fruits of all thy increase. That word increase, a lot of people ask me all the time, how much do you tithe and how much do you give? And well, there's different answers, kind of. The one guy, I remember this years ago, he said, do you tithe on your gross or your net? And the preacher answered and said, do you want a gross blessing or a net blessing? And I've heard that statement made. But you know, when you get increase, when other things come in you're not expecting, you're to give the Lord the first fruits of that also. The Bible makes that very clear. I can't help but think about this verse in Brother Maynard Brumman. Brother Maynard's given all of his life, and for years and years been a very generous person to this church, to me personally, and to others, and has helped a lot of people. And he is going to be missed. The only thing that I was thinking about, they put him in there yesterday. Of course, the nurses down there are amazed. Here's my mom still in there, and now one of our church members is in there. And we went in there, me and Brother Miss Gail, me, you, and Miss Linda was in there with him. And he's always said this to me. He's always said this for years and years. He'd say, preacher, I love you and I've got your back. That's what he said to me yesterday. And then he goes and dies today. So I reckon he's got my back from heaven, bless God, amen, or whatever. But pray for Miss Linda. Pray for the family. All of his daughters were down there today. But he was a man that gave and done and cared for others, and we'll miss that. We'll miss him. He called me. He would call me crazy times. He called me last week early one morning, probably about 6:30. I said hello, and he said, preacher, did I wake you up? And I said, yes, you did, and laughed. He said, well, it's the only time I can call you because I can't catch you no other time. So, but anyway, pray for them, pray for the family there, that the Lord take care of them. Verse 11, and of course in verse 10 came the promise after you give the first fruits of the increase. I mean, you get a raise, you get some money, you get something here or there, then you owe God the first fruits of that. So shall thy barns be filled with plenty, and thy presses shall burst out with new wine. Now we start tonight and pick up in verse number 11. My son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, neither be weary of his correction. Now I don't think nobody likes to be chastened, and I don't think nobody likes to be corrected. But look what verse 12 says. He gives you a good reason for what verse 11 says. For whom the Lord loveth, he correcteth, even as the Father the Son, in whom He delighted. The principle is, if you love somebody, you'll correct them. It's like modern day children raised by a lot of people. I know small children that are not chastened like they should be, and it's not going to be funny as they get older. And we're already living with some of them as teenagers now and young millennials or whatever. Because if you love somebody, you'll correct them. If you love somebody, you'll chasten them. Because you want them to be the best they can be. Like my 3 children, I didn't want to chasten them. I didn't look forward to doing it, but it was good for them. And it corrected them. And it helped them. And so I'm glad now that my wife and I both were hurt. She did more of the disciplining than I did, to be honest with you. She was probably the tighter rein than I was. People didn't believe that years ago, but that's a fact. She'd snatch a knot in her tail, I guarantee you. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 13 says, happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. Now watch some things he talks about wisdom and understand. Watch some of these descriptions here that he says about it. For the merchandise of it is better than the merchandise of silver, and the gain thereof than fine gold. There's some millionaires that haven't got much wisdom. Money doesn't buy you wisdom. The Bible says if a man lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who giveth to him liberally. So, wisdom, and what is wisdom, preacher? You know, there's a lot of that word's thrown around a lot. And my papa told me when I was a boy multiple times, there was an old guy about 94, 95 years old. And my papa lived over in between Scriven and Jessup out on, well, I think they call it the old Scriven Road or whatever, on a dirt road. And he sharecropped a farm, and he was a master carpenter. And he raised tobacco and cotton, not as much cotton. He was more tobacco, watermelons, and corn. That was his biggest plants the products that he produced. We did cotton some. Tobacco was the biggest one, really, and watermelons and things like that. But over from him, about 3 or 4 miles, was an old man that lived in a shed. It was like, if you looked at it, you'd think it was a big outhouse sitting out there. His name was Mr. Tom. And he was, I forgot again, he was in his mid-90s. Papa told me the last time we saw him. And I was probably about, I don't know, 12 or 13, 14 years old. And Papa would go by and see Mr. Tom. And we'd always just ride by him. And what he did, he lived on the property that his grandson owned. And he didn't have electricity for years. And he finally got electricity and refrigeration, and I mean, he had a few things inside, but it was just an old shed shack, what it was. And Papa, I remember, we'd pull up in the yard, you know, and we'd get out, and I'd say to Papa every time, almost every time, I'd say, why do you come see Mr. Tom so much? Because he wasn't working, and he'd be sitting down in that little old tiny porch. The porch wasn't as big as this right here, is it? That old rocking chair he'd be sitting in. And my papa said, because that man probably knows more in his little finger than me and you know in our whole body. And we'd just sit there and talk to Mr. Tom. Papa would just ask him things about, I mean, he'd ask him about farming, he'd ask him about fishing, he'd talk to him about, you know, life and everything. You know, back then, everybody wasn't in a hurry, you know. We'd sit there. Now, to be honest with you, I was bored to death. Wherever we'd go, that's why I always asked Papa, why are we coming here? Because I wasn't listening to the conversation very much. And I'd be running around playing in the yard. I'd get me a tobacco stick or something, and some of them rocks down there in South Georgia, and I'd throw them rocks up. and hit them, make your mantle starve. But I remember Papa said one time to me, he said, you know, we can't go to Mr. Tom's no more. And I said, why is that? He said, well, he said he's dead. He passed away. He said he passed away a few weeks ago. He said, I probably got more wisdom from that old man than everywhere. And I told that story because in our day, it's almost the opposite, ain't it, Brother Jeff? It's like these millennials and these young people know more than the older people do about everything almost. And I know they're already looking around. They're probably rolling their eyes, and some of them, more of them are here, they're probably saying, oh, here he goes again. Yeah, because they know so much. They haven't been nowhere. They haven't done anything yet, hardly, but they know more than the ones that have. Wisdom, when I think of wisdom, I think of an old man like Mr. Tom. I think of a man like my grandpa. I think of great old preachers that I had the privilege to sit down and just talk. I used to love to just sit down with old preachers, retired preachers, 70, 80, 90 years old, and just talk to them about the Bible and just talk to them about preaching. Man, they'd say things, you know. They'd say things and you'd sit there and go, man, that makes sense. Wisdom is, here's my best definition of wisdom. Wisdom is knowledge and understanding with experience. You don't just know it in a book. You know it by experience. Wisdom is practical. Wisdom is something you can apply to your life. And that's why I told you the other day that Charles Spurgeon made that statement, that if you want to know the mind of God, read one Proverbs every day. If you want to know the heart of God, read one Psalms every day. Charles Spurgeon was supposed to have read the book of Proverbs 1,000 times, Brother Mike. Said he read it 1,000 times, the book of Proverbs. He said he couldn't get enough of the mind of God. And so right here in this passage, it says that getting wisdom is better than silver. And getting wisdom is better than gold. And you say, preacher, I don't know about that. Yeah, because number one, wisdom will bring you silver and gold and show you how to spend silver and gold if you get the silver and gold. Then it says in verse 15, it says she, and the she is referring back to wisdom. She is more precious than rubies. And all the things that thou canst desire are not to be compared unto her. How many of y'all, would it be a fair statement to say this? How many of y'all would agree with this statement? That you wish in your life, a lot more often than not, that you would have listened to wisdom more than your own experience. Yeah. Because wisdom says, that looks pretty, wisdom says to listen to authority. Wisdom says to respect authority. Wisdom says to take the facts into your mind and make decisions that you've experienced or you know the practical thing the Bible says to do. Wisdom is so good. I know a preacher friend of mine. He's passed away now. Brother Bill Barnes. He went to college with us, and he went up and he pastored in Maryland and in the Northeast. He pastored in Maryland and Connecticut, I think, for like 40 years. He had a heart attack about 5 years ago and passed away. But he memorized, Brother Joe, the book of Proverbs. He memorized the book of Proverbs 25, 30 years ago. And I heard him stand in the pulpit more than once and say, outside of getting saved, and outside of the college education he got and was able to learn, that probably memorizing Proverbs helped him more in his Christian life than anything he ever did. We need to be in it more. I'm not in it enough. I know that sometimes we older people, think we know everything. And, you know, the thing about it, you won't get to a place that you know everything. You might think you do. You might come across as you do, but you'll never get there. He says, length of days is in her hand, still talking about wisdom, and in her left hand, riches and honor. Now watch verse 17. I love 17 and 18 here. I love these two verses. And we're talking now about wisdom. The her and the she here is talking about wisdom. Her ways are ways of pleasantness. You know, that's not a word that's used a lot in the Bible, but it's a word that we should, you know, when I read this today, I was down there with Mom today, and I was reading my Bible and studying a little bit for the night, going over what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to read through the book of Proverbs every 7 days. It takes about 4.5 chapters a day. So that's what I'm doing. I'm reading through Proverbs every week, and I'm going to do that for a while. So I was reading through it today, and I run across that word pleasantness. And you know what I thought of? And my wife's been down there, and Miss Kale, and some of you others have been down there. I really thought of those hospice nurses. I mean, they're amazing. They really are. Miss Linda told me today they put Brother Maynard in yesterday, and he was really out of whack and in pain, and and they kept medicating him and kept medicating him until they got him relieved, until they got him. But she told me this morning, Miss Gail, she said, I've never seen people like these nurses. Well, we've been there now 16 days, and I've not had one nurse, not one, say a cross word to me, give me a cross attitude. It's just been pleasant. It's been kind. It's been considerate. I mean, they'll come in there and they'll say, you just be sitting in there doing nothing. They'll say, you okay? And I'll say, yes, ma'am, I am. And they'll say, how's your mom doing? I say, well, she's the same. And they'll say, well, do you want something? You want me to go down and get you a cup of Coke or something, or a coffee or something? I mean, they're trained this way. They're trained to be this way. But think of this, people sitting there with their loved ones dying. They should be. But I was just sitting there thinking about that word pleasantness. Wouldn't it be, I mean, one nurse left today, her name is Natasha. She's been there, goodness, she's been there a lot. And she was leaving a little early, and she had Mama today, so she came by to see me before she left, about 5 o'clock. And she said, I won't be back for 2 or 3 days, but I want you to know that I've really been impressed with you and your brother and how y'all stood with your mother. I said, families don't do that anymore much, I can tell you. I said, y'all really impressed me, your love for your mother. I said, well, y'all have impressed me with your love for her too. And she said, well, I mean, she's the one that comes in there and gives her medicine and prays over her. She gives her medicine and has a word of prayer with her. And I was just thinking of that word pleasantness. Wisdom leads to pleasantness. Look what it says. It says her ways are ways of pleasantness. You know, it's just so much better to be kind. It's just so much, it gets so much more done, I believe, than the other way that we do it so many times. And then it says, and all her paths are peace. Well, you know, if you're living a life and wisdom is running things, then the path you're taking, you're going to be making right decisions. You're going to be doing more of the right things than the wrong things. So you're going to have a lot of peace about you. You're going to have a lot of peace about you. It goes on to say, she's, still talking about wisdom, is a tree of life to them that lay hold upon her. And happy is every one that retaineth her. The Lord by wisdom hath founded the earth. By understanding hath he established the heavens. By his knowledge the depths are broken up, and the clouds drop down the dew. Now watch, we change subjects a little bit here. My son, let not them depart from thine eyes. Keep sound wisdom. Then there's a word I really like a lot the Bible uses a few times. And discretion. What is discretion? The first thing I thought about when I see the word discretion, I think about in years ago more than now, but when they came out with a movie, they would say sometimes parental discretion advised. They'd make that statement, you know, that parental discretion is advised about watching this movie. Discretion is a wonderful word. It means really that you take the facts, you take the wisdom and the understanding and the knowledge that you have, and you use that to make a decision on what to do. That's what it means. To show discretion means I have two ways to go. I have two ways to react. I have two ways to do things, but I choose the better one. And most of the time, discretion goes against what you naturally are wanting to do. When somebody's mean to you, what is your natural response? Fire back. Discretion sometimes says you just shut up. I mean, D.L. Moody said, don't ever argue with a fool in public, because people can't tell which one's a fool. Now, that's the truth. That's practical stuff, but it is. I mean, somebody comes by and you're out there going with a fool, they don't know who the fool is. But let the fool make a fool of himself, because he will. But it says here in verse 21, keep sound wisdom and discretion. Well, I wish so many times I would have made the more discreet decision. So shall they be life unto thy soul, and grace to thy neck. Then shalt thou walk, look here now, then shalt thou walk in thy way safely, and thy foot shall not stumble. I go back to my papa. He taught me so much about, he was a country guy. He was a fisherman. My papa loved to fish. I mean, my papa would fish in a ditch and catch redfin pike that big and eat them. He just loved fish. He liked to fish. He liked to eat them. And I just remember so many times he'd teach me things. And it was just wisdom that he knew that I didn't know. I remember one time I would go down, we had two ponds on his property. We had one of them called the Little Pond, and it was full of brim and a few bass. It was about an acre pond. Then we had one up by the barn that was called the Big Pond. It was about a 5-acre pond. It was full of everything. But Mr. Nichols, who owned the farm, basically, wouldn't let nobody fish in that pond there, hardly except me and his son. And so what I'd do is I'd go over there and, Grandma, this is fresh as it gets in. Grandma would say, I want to mess the fish tonight, son. Go over there to the pond and catch us about 10 or 12 brim. Bring them back, we'd clean them and gut them, and she'd cook them right there, fresh as you can get. And so I went over, what I'd do is, when I left, I'd take me, there's this cement block there, and I'd stick the pole down in the dirt, in the mud, in that block, where if a fish got on it, he could pull it, but he couldn't pull it in the pond. And when I got back, if he's still on there, I'd have him. So I did that hundreds of times. I came back and caught a nice brim, a couple of catfish. Papa walked back with me one day. I'll never forget this. I don't know how old I was, but I'll never forget this. And I had a cane pole, and I laid it out there with my worm, and I stuck it down in the block. And we came back to the pond. He walked over there with me just to see what I was catching. And we got back, and the line that when I left was out there, was in the bushes. I mean, the line was in the bushes. Well, I'm going to just reach down there by that block. I'm going to pull that cane pole up, catch my Mac Daddy fish. He said, now stop a minute, son. I said, what? He said, no, now wait a minute. He said, there's something wrong here. I said, well, see, something on it. You can see, I mean, the pole, you know, the end of the pole was doing this. It was something trying to get out of the pond. He said, do fish try to get out of a pond? I said, well, not that I know of. He said, now why is that line back up there in the mud? I said, I don't know. Could have been a fish that went the wrong way. He said, don't pick that cane pole up with your hand. And he went over and got a stick, and he took the stick, and he kind of took the stick, had a crook in it, and he took the stick and he reached it down in the hole where the block was, and he pulled the pole up. When he did, the pole went flat and went across the pond. It was a water moccasin. And what had happened, a fish had bit it. And the moccasin ate the fish and got up. And my pole just swam off. He said, you see what's on that pole? I said, yeah. He said, he'd have bit you. If you had reached down there and pulled him in, you could have got bit by him. Now, you know, all I want to do is pull up something was pulling my pole, I'm going to pull him in. And see, that's how life is sometimes. I mean, it looks like everything, you know, I mean, it looks like, or just pick it up and go with it, but I might not need to. I might need to look at the situation. You know, one of the biggest things that I have to do, and I've been terrible at doing it most of my life. I have jumped the gun 6 million times. I mean, I'm impulsive, spontaneous, all those, that's me. A lot of times, if you just let the smoke clear a little bit, if you just let things just settle a while, you'll see clearly what you should do. You'll see clearly what you should do. And see, that's what wisdom shows you. And that's what discretion talks about. Wisdom and discretion talks about that. Then we go on to see here, and by the way, I don't know about you, but I want to walk safely, and I don't want to stumble. When thou liest down, thou shalt not be afraid. Yea, thou shalt lie down, and thy sleep shall be sweet. Be not afraid of sudden fear, neither of the desolation of the wicked when it cometh. By the way, it will come too. For the Lord shall be thy confidence, and shall keep thy foot from being taken. You know, I watched Brother Maynard die, basically. And I walked in the room, and he's dead. And, I mean, his daughter's there, and his granddaughter's there, and his Linda's there. And then there's some others coming in. And I thought of what I've said lately a few times. What if we didn't have the Lord to help during those times? What would you tell that family? I mean, what would you tell them? I mean, one of the nurses the other day, Katina. Katina came and got me. She said there's a family down here, and the mother has just passed away. And they don't have a pastor, nobody with them. Would you go pray with them? I said, sure. So I went down there and prayed with them. But I just thought, what if you didn't have the Lord going through that stuff? Could you imagine somebody you love and dying and not knowing you'll ever see him again or whatever? Having no hope of that? I mean, it's such a blessing to know the Lord. Withhold not good from them to whom it is due, when it is in the power of thine hand to do it. If you've got the resource, and somebody it is due, that means they deserve it. They're doing what they can. They're in a position they can't help, but you can help them. Then you should help them. Say not unto thy neighbor, go, and come again. And tomorrow I will give when thou hast it by thee. Well, don't put it off. If you've got the ability to help somebody and be a blessing to them, go on and do it. Devise not evil against thy neighbor, seeing he dwelleth securely by thee. I've got good neighbors where we live at. I like all my neighbors. They're really, really fair, good people. Verse 30. Strive not with the man without cause, if he have done thee no harm. Envy thou not the oppressor, and choose none of his ways. For the froward, and that word means perverse. For the perverse is abomination to the Lord. I'm going to tell you something, folks. If you watch some of this news today, we got some perverse people in America. America has some people that are scary to think that a human being thinks that way. But they do. Things they're saying, some of the things they're saying to do, some of the things they're doing. It broke my heart when I heard about them 11 children found in Arizona. Didn't the man's little 3-year-old boy go missing or something? And they got a lead or something. They found the man in Arizona. And they said 11 children were there. And they said you could see their bones. They were malnutrition. I mean, can you just imagine? Can you imagine a human being doing that to 11 children? I mean, we just live in such... Now, I believe, what I believe about that, I believe that is satanically led and satanically induced. I don't believe that's a regular human being doing that. I think there are evil things and demons in that person that has taken them to the level of perversion and cruelty that doesn't value human life. You know, you got to watch your children now. They're talking about, they're kidnapping children for this human trafficking. Everywhere. Between the ages of 6 and 12 especially. I mean, they're just kidnapping and taking them and selling them. I mean, you just think about doing that. You just can't. A little innocent child. I mean, man. But his secret is with the righteous. The curse of the Lord is in the house of the wicked. This is one of those contrast verses. But he blesseth the habitation of the just. You want to be on that second part of verse 33. Surely he scorneth the scorners. What is a scorner? Somebody that mocks. Somebody that belittles. That's what scorning means. Surely he scorneth the scorners, but he giveth grace unto the lowly. You know, humble people who don't think highly of themselves are a blessing to be around. The wise shall inherit glory. There's another contrast. But shame shall be the promotion of fools. You know what? You're going to be one of them. You're going to be a fool, or you're going to be wise. You're going to have discretion, or you're going to be a fool. It's up to you. It's not up to God. God wants you to have discretion. God wants you to have wisdom. That's why he brags so much about wisdom. Instead, get it. And you know how you get wisdom? It's not in the verse here. You know how you get wisdom? You get wisdom from God. You get wisdom from people older than you, people in authority over you, that tell you things, that suggest you things, that tell you things to miss. Your parents normally are not trying to do you harm. I mean, you may think they are, but they're not. In most cases, they're trying to help you. And in most cases, they've been right where you are. And in most cases, they know exactly what you're thinking about. Because we thought about it too. I guarantee you. I mean, that's why I told a boy one time when my daughters were getting old enough for boys to like them. And one boy at Peachtree Road Baptist, he asked me, he said, what would I have to do? What would I have to do to be able to go one of your daughters? I said, you can't do nothing to them. He said, why? I said, I don't trust you. He said, wait a minute, Brother Ed. He said, why don't you trust me? I said, you're a boy. He said, but you're a boy. He said, but you're a boy. You're a boy wanting a girlfriend. And I just don't trust you. And it ain't time for my daughters yet. So just go find somebody else. He looked so funny at me. He goes, I thought you liked me. I said, I don't mind you. But I don't want you messing with my daughters. You know why, Brother Joe? Because I know how I thought. I was a boy at one time. You know, I think they think sometime, Brother Tony, I'm preaching to you a minute. I think they think sometime we go to bed one day, we're 12 years old, and we wake up 49 years old. We didn't go through no teenage years. We didn't have any of those thoughts in our mind. We didn't have any of those plans in our minds. We didn't think about none of that stuff. We went from 12 to 49. We didn't have no teenage years. I think sometimes they think that. But we did. Get wisdom from God. This book is full of wisdom. This book is the greatest book in the world about wisdom. No book comes close to this book about wisdom. Get it from your parents. Get it from people in authority over you. Get it from older people that will invest in you and will listen to you and will talk to you and will give you counsel on what to do. That's how you get wisdom. And you end up making good choices. And I guarantee you one day you're glad you do. That's it. Let's stand.